please. Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Ms. Woolman, would you please read the opening statement and call the roll?
Let the minutes reflect that adequate notice of the holding of this workshop meeting of the Howell Township Council was provided for in the following manner: by the posting of a copy of said notice upon the bulletin board in the Township building on December 21, 2005. By the fax of a copy of said notice of the Exeter Press, Tri-Town News, and Star Ledger for publication on December 21, 2005. By the filing of a copy of said form of notice in the Township Clerk's office on December 21, 2005. The public will be allowed to attend and will be allowed to participate pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Law. The public is reminded that civility and decorum will be maintained during the meeting. Any contracts awarded at this meeting or between now and the next meeting will be required to comply with the requirements of Public Law 1975, Chapter 127. In accordance with the fire prevention code, be advised that this facility is designed with 3 emergency exits for your safety. The locations are as follows: upon exiting the meeting room, to the rear there, to your immediate left and immediate right, and at the front of the meeting room at the left of the dais. Furthermore, smoking is not permitted in the municipal building. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77. Roll call, Mr. Malavey.
Mr. Malavey is excused. He had a business commitment, and he told us last month he would not be here tonight.
Mrs. Showmaker.
Present.
Mr. Tabasco.
Here.
Mr. Walsh.
We just spoke with Bobby. He said he'd be here momentarily.
Mayor DeBella.
Here. All right, I understand that we have reason to go into executive session. Is that right, Mr. Chernetsky? Yes. Okay. Would you please read the appropriate statement, Ms. Woolman, for executive session?
Whereas Title 10, Chapter 4, Section 13 of the New Jersey Revised Statutes require that the public shall not be excluded from any meetings of a public body unless a resolution authorizing such exclusion is adopted at a public meeting. Whereas the Township Council of the Township of Howell has determined that such a closed meeting is required to discuss certain matters which are exempted from consideration with the public in attendance under New Jersey Revised Statutes 10:4-12. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Howell that the public shall be excluded from the next portion of this meeting, and that the Township Council will reconvene in public session thereafter. Be it further resolved that minutes will be kept of the meeting in closed session, and the time and the circumstances under which the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public cannot be determined at this time.
Okay, we need a motion, please, and a second.
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
The motion and a second. Any remarks with respect to executive? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. All right, for the benefit of the public, we expect to be out of executive session. There's a glow on the clock, so on or about 8 o'clock, we should be completed with executive session. I think we need you to find gentlemen. Is that right, Mr. Chernetsky, right up now? Okay. We shall reconvene immediately after close. Thank you. All right, I'm going to reconvene the meeting back to order. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Let the record reflect this is a continuation of the Howell Township Mayor and Council's workshop meeting of June 13th. The time is 8:20. I'm going to please ask that everyone rise for a Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd ask that everyone please remain standing for a moment of silent observation and thought of the troops in this country defending democracy all over the world. Thank you. All right, Mr. Chernetsky, what do you have for us under manager's reports?
We have a big agenda this evening, so I'm just going to be really very brief. The one thing I wanted to...
I think you might want to pull a little closer.
Okay, sorry. Mayor, I'm going to be very brief. The only thing I want to let council know about regarding a lot of phone calls we've been getting into our office regarding the gypsy moth problem. Apparently this gypsy moths are out in full force in a number of neighborhoods. And I contacted the Shade Tree Commission. And what I was told was that any further spraying this year would be completely ineffective. It has to happen at a time when the bugs are feeding, and now it just would not work. But what I wanted the residents to know, any of those who are hearing either here or on TV, that it's critical that phone calls go to the Shade Tree Commission, because the phone calls the commission gets now will form the basis for their evaluation in the fall. So the phone number there is 732-431-7903. that we're happy to take the message and pass it along, but it's important that the message, we just don't get messages left without specifics, and they're more effective if they go directly to the commission.
Terrific.
And that's all I have for tonight.
Okay. Are there any pressing reports of members of the governing body in that we are running approximately 25 minutes behind schedule?
No, Mayor.
Mr. Walsh?
No, Mayor.
Mr. Tabasco?
Nothing pressing, man.
Okay. Let's go on to consent agenda items. I'm going to ask for the council's indulgence to call your attention to certain add-on items. I would request that we take the necessary action to amend the agenda to add these items on, and in addition that we be ready to take action on certain items added to the agenda this evening. So I would first ask that a member of the council move to add on items. I'm sorry. I'd first ask for someone to move to go into regular session.
So moved.
Second, Mayor.
Motion and a second. Any remarks? Hearing none, roll call.
Mr. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. All right, let me just read the add-ons for the benefit of the public. 9A3 is the 2006 salary ordinance as amended. 9B57 is the 2006 Community Block Grant Senior Citizen Building ADA Compliance and Elevator Application. 9B85 is the 2007 Department of Transportation Municipal Aid Grant for Yellowbrook Road. 9B59 is a Green Acres Enabling Resolution Planning Incentive Grant 1321-00021. 9B60 is an authorization waiver of ordinance number 134-28, Village Square at Howell Paving, and 9B61 is an employment settlement agreement with Theodore Shostek. I would ask that someone please make a motion to add these items to the agenda.
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any remarks on add-ons? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. We have several items to take action on this evening after we walk through the consent agenda. One of them, obviously, this evening is we do have 8A1, which is the 2006 cap and cap bank ordinances, but I will remind us we do need to go back to several 9A, 9B, and 9C items that do need our action this evening. Having said that, I call everyone's attention. This is workshop, obviously, to consent agenda items marked with an asterisk. Are there any questions or comments or remarks on the consent agenda items?
Mayor, if I might ask, in light that our Judge Kaplan is here tonight, that we add 9B23 to authorize the reappointment of him to that position.
So we'll do that for, to also be taken action on this evening? Okay. Does anyone have an objection? All right, so when we go to action items, we will, in addition, act on 9B23. So let's go to consent agenda. Anyone have any issues? If we go to the 9B section, bottom of page 2, 9B 1, 2, or 3, questions or comments? Top of page 3, 9B 4 through 9B 15. Top of page 4, 9B 16 to 9B 26. We are going to take action on a variety of these as well, as you may know, beginning with 9B23. Top of page 5, 9B27 through 9B36. Top of page 6, 9B37 to 9B46. Top of page 7 is 9B47 to 9B56. We have various motions, most of which are fairly rudimentary, one of which includes a resignation from the Farmers Advisory Committee, Drew Madston.
Actually, I do have a comment about 9B40, which is on page 6. I saw in one of Penny's comments tonight that actually was to reject all bids, not to
Right.
authorize
9B28.
Yeah, 9B40.
9B40.
Which we take, is that,
28 and 40 needs to be removed.
and 9B40 is action. Oh, actually, we don't remove 9B40, it reads wrong, is that right? That's right. So 9B40 is going to be approved. We'll have a
But-
separate action on it to ensure its clarity.
All right.
Yeah, what about saying
9B28, though, does need to be removed.
that needs an affirmative vote to reject the bids? 9B40.
Mr. Gannon, do we need, from a parliamentary perspective, do we need to formally take action to remove 9B28, or is that not necessary?
I move we remove 9B28.
28?
Yeah, 28 is recommended to be removed from the agenda by the clerk's office. Does that need to be voted on to be removed, or?
It's not on for action for tonight in any event,
It's
so
not?
we don't have to do
Okay.
anything with it.
Okay.
All right, so those are
Go back to that.
the 9B and C items. Any questions or comments on any of those?
No.
All right, hearing none, let's go back to then the actionable items,
Numerous.
the first of which is 8A1.
Cap and cap.
And 8A1 is a statement to be read by the mayor. Ordinance number 00624, introduced and passed on first reading on 5/16/06, and and published according to laws now being taken upon for further consideration and public hearing. Affidavit of the publication of this ordinance in the Asbury Park Press issue of May 19, 2006 is submitted, and it's noted that a copy of the ordinance is posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and the copies were available to the general public upon request. Ms. Woolman, would you please read the title of the ordinance?
Ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank, NJSA 40A:4-45.14.
Okay, before I open this up to the public, Mr. Filiatro, would you give a brief synopsis of the reasoning and requirements behind this, please?
Yeah, so the main reason, the reason that we need that is that a town gets to carry forward for 2 years any of the cap limitation they have not used in the budget.
Good.
We are under cap this year, and certainly it expires at the end of 2 years, but it just doesn't make any sense for lack of just doing an ordinance not to have it carry forward 2 years to give us that leeway if in fact we should need a little bit of leeway in the next 2 years.
Terrific. I'm going to open up the meeting to the public for anyone who'd like to be heard with comments for or against the final adoption of this ordinance. Anyone who'd like to be heard, please come forward now. Anyone who'd like to be heard, please come forward. Let the record reflect there's no public portion on this particular item. I'm going to ask a member of the council to proceed.
Motion that ordinance number 06-24 be finally passed and adopted, and notice of its passage and adoption be published in the June 1606 issue of the Asbury Park Press by reference to its title only.
We have a motion. We need a second.
Second.
Motion and a second with respect to 8A1. Roll call. Any final remarks?
No, this is a good thing.
Hearing no final remarks. Roll call, please.
Mr. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mary DeBella?
Yes. Call your attention to actions to be added on, to be taken action on this evening. I'm going to reference which ones they include. 9A2, 9A3, 9B29, 9B30, 9B31 and 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, so long as 40 is a reject all bid. 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, and 23. 9C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Reasoning behind these needing action this evening is a variety of these need to be acted upon, and with last week being Election Day, we did not have reason to meet or could not meet, and so we are typically a week behind in our business, so these do need to be taken action on this evening. I'm going to recommend a separate vote, please, on 9B23, and I'll ask a member of the council to make a motion on that one first.
I make a motion, Mayor.
We have a motion, we need a second.
Second.
Motion and a second, 9B23, to reappoint the Honorable Judge Kaplan as the presiding municipal court judge, Township of Howell. Any remarks? Remarks?
Keep up the fine work and bringing revenue to the town, Judge.
That's what I was just going to. I'd like to continue to see him to the job that he's doing. He has increased our revenue. The police department are very pleased with him, and we welcome him for reappointment.
Yeah, I'll add, Your Honor, that you have been a tremendous addition to the municipality. We get nothing but glowing remarks from residents and members of the law enforcement community, court administrator. You've done a terrific job, and we appreciate your continued service. Any final remarks? Roll call, please.
Mr. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mary DeBella?
Yes. Congratulations, Your Honor.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
You're not obligated to stay, Your Honor. We know you put a lot of nights in.
Might be able to just dispense some activity right here, so you might have some cases if you want to stay.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you very much.
God bless you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
He does a wonderful job.
He does. All right, what I'd like to do is call the council's attention back to the items we've just read, absent 9B23 that's been acted upon. Does anyone have a request for any of these items to be acted on separately?
The two 9C motions for the Performance Advisory Committee, that would be 9C1 and 9C12. for
Okay.
the EDC.
They need to be acted on separately?
They may, if you're going
Well,
to make
the,
an appointment. If you're not going to make an appointment tonight, then they can just be.
I don't even think we've seen
No.
potential replacements yet, so I don't think we're in a position to...
One of them you did. We'll
Yeah.
go through it.
All right, anyone here on the council look to make a motion tonight to appoint anyone in these committees, or is that not on for tonight? And Mr. Malave isn't here, so
We could just accept the
Okay.
resignation. We'll relist it on June 27th.
why don't we do that?
Okay.
All right, anyone want any of these items acted on separately?
Well, we have two ordinance introductions, which I think have to be 982.
Well, those we're only doing the, I'm sorry, excluding the ordinances, it's really
Right.
everything except 9A2 and 9A3.
Good.
So on any of the other items, just to get them out of the way.
Yeah, 9B29 through 9C14.
Correct.
I make a motion to accept, Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion, we need a second.
What was the motion for?
The motion is all add-ons excluding 9A2 and 3, which are ordinances and need to be acted on separately.
Well, second.
And on the top of, in the next page.
What I just want Penny to, there seems to be a gap between 9B45 and 9B57 again.
Well, you know what, those items did not need action
They don't need to be
tonight.
acted on.
They can wait until June 27th, so tonight we just wanted to take action on the things that could not wait until June 27th. So
Okay, then I'll second.
Oh, Bob already did.
Oh, we did?
We have a second from Councilman Walsh. We have a motion and a second. That was a remark. Are there any final remarks? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please, on Mrs. Showmaker's motion.
Mrs. Schoenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBello?
Yes. Call the council's attention to 9A2, which is acquisition of Block 3.02, Lot 14, Fred and Cheryl Breyer, $10,000.
This is for the traffic light in Newton
This
Town?
is,
Okay.
that's correct. This is the ordinance authorizes the acquisition of portion of said lock and blot for the installation of curbing, sidewalk, and electronic underground wiring for the traffic signal to be installed at Newton's Corner Road and Lakewood Allenwood Road for the sum of $10,000. And the sum, obviously, is property acquisition. This needs to be introduced tonight, so I'll ask a member of the council to please proceed.
Mayor, I'm sorry, just
I'm
if
sorry,
I
go
can
ahead.
just, this was previously introduced, but there were mistakes in the ordinance.
Okay?
So it was scheduled for public hearing next meeting. So if we introduce tonight, we would still be able to adopt
Good.
at the next meeting. I don't know, perhaps the attorney can tell us whether we actually have to vote at the public hearing. The previous resolution has to, ordinance has to be removed. Tom, any...
Mr. Gannon, what's your direction?
9A2, this authorizes the acquisition of the property at Newton's Corner Road, right?
Correct.
And when was it introduced?
8A3, Tom, is where it was advertised for public hearing and adoption on June 27, but that ordinance does have the errors. So on June 27, is that the proper time to vote it down?
Has it been advertised?
Yes. On May.
All right, so
16th.
on June 27th, what you would do would be that, put that on first for a motion to table that, and then proceed with 9A2, which is 06-28.
But should we introduce 982 tonight is the other part of that?
Yes.
All right, member of the council, please proceed with respect to 982.
Motion to introduce ordinance 06-28 on first reading by title and to order the same to be published in full in the June 1606 issue of the Asbury Park Press, together with notice of an introduction and passage on first reading by title, and that it will be further considered for final passage after public hearing and a meeting of the Township Council to be held on June 2706 at 8 p.m. prevailing time in the municipal building.
We have a motion, we need a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Ms. Wellman, would you please read the ordinance by title?
An ordinance of the Township of Howell, Monmouth County, New Jersey, authorizing the acquisition on an easement being a portion of Block 3.02, Lot 14, comprising of 2,916 square feet for the sum of $10,000.
Okay, we had a motion and a second. We've read that. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. Call the council's attention, add-on item 9A2, introduction.
You mean 9A3?
Sorry, 9A3. I apologize. 9A3.
Motion to introduce ordinance number 06-29 on first reading by title and to order the same to be published in full in the June 16th, 06 issue of the Asbury Park Press, together with notice of its introduction and passage on first reading by title, and that it will be further considered for final passage at their public hearing at a meeting of the Township Council to be held on June 27, 06 at 8 p.m. prevailing time in the municipal building.
Okay, we have a motion. We need a second, please.
Second.
Okay, would you please read the ordinance by title, Ms. Woman?
An ordinance to amend an ordinance entitled An Ordinance Fixing Salary and Compensation of Certain Offices, Positions, and Employees in the Township of Howell, County of Monmouth, New Jersey for the year 2006, and thereafter known by its short name as Howell Township Salary Ordinance.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any comments or questions, remarks on this?
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question, if I could, of
Yes, sir.
our manager. So is this the maximum? Because we know right now we're advertising for Director of Public Works.
Yes, we are advertising a number of positions. Some of the positions are, because they were fixed in a contract, were very specific in the ordinance, in the salary and wage ordinance. So what I'd like to do is, under this ordinance, is create a range under which I can hire during the interview, upon completion of the interview process. So it basically sets a range that I can look at.
Okay.
Any additional questions? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. Okay. Call the council's attention to tab 9, discussion items. 10.1, gather permit proposed ordinance. 10.1, Township Council discussed the need for a gathering permit as a result of a large number of people planning an unauthorized concert at one of the township's parks. Mr. Chernetsky, I'm going to turn this over to you, and I don't know if you have our recreation director here for that as well.
I do, Mayor. I would invite Helene Schlegel to handle both items 10.1 and 10.2.
Welcome, Mrs. Schlegel. If you wouldn't mind, for the benefit of the public, just introduce yourself, and I'll turn the floor over to you. I think we have this in the back.
Yes, it's here.
Okay, Ms. Schlegel, what do you have for us?
Okay, with respect to the gathering permit, I believe you may have a copy of the gathering permit previously, which was for the large crowds, 25 persons and above. However, I'd like to ask that you look at the park facility rental form. The purpose of the park facility rental is to ensure that our residents have a safe and enjoyable park experience. Recently, the Parks and Recreation Department has received requests to reserve picnic areas and fields, particularly at Oakland Park, for things such as family reunions or, block parties that get together or something like that, neighbors that want to get together. And presently there's no policy in place to address this issue. We only have a policy with regards to organizations, not the public at large. Of course, if the public just wants to show up on any day to play ball or to have a picnic, that's fine. But when they want a field exclusively or the picnic area exclusively, then my recommendation is that we need to have something in place. Whenever there's a large picnic, additional services are needed, whether it's trash cans being put out, recycling containers, restrooms may be needed, and things such as that. There are also certain fire fire regulations and park policies that need to be enforced. So this permit process will allow the Parks and Recreation Department to safely monitor the park use and keep it safe for our residents. So what I'm recommending tonight is that with that gathering permit, which is the large gathering permit, which is rather extensive, I think that I would ask that we all need to look at that, and possibly the attorney go through that, as well as the Recreation Advisory Board. The Recreation Advisory Committee has gone over the park facility rental, and the recommendation from my department is that any group of 10 or more requesting exclusive use of a picnic area or field should fill out a park permit for a $25 fee for residents, $50 fee for non-residents. In addition, if restrooms are requested, a refundable $50 fee key deposit would be charged, and the deposit would be returned when the key is returned and the restrooms have been checked for damages. And just please note that this policy excludes Echo Lake Park, which is already handled by a standing ordinance.
Mayor, if I can just add to
Janeski, please.
Schlegel's comments. What we anticipate wind up happening is not just kind of resolving what might be something of a negative issue in terms of controlling unlicensed gatherings, but from a business perspective, in the communities I've worked in, this becomes really a wonderful thing that the community starts to look forward to, in the sense that you can rent a gazebo and you can, or other stuff for parties and things like that, and you can be guaranteed that it's reserved for you. And it pays for the trash removal and stuff. And, you know, once we get accustomed to having that and marketing it, it can actually become a very positive thing for the community.
We want to encourage our residents to come out
Okay.
and use our park system.
All right, let's start with comments. Mr. Tabasco, any questions, comments?
No, it's good.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Oh, I've waited for this a long time. She knows that.
Okay, Mr. Walsh?
I agree. I think it will encourage people to come out, because they'll be able to be guaranteed that they have a place to go and have that family gathering. And it will keep some undesirable things from happening also.
Correct.
Put a little restriction out there.
My only other comment is that the fee to me is reasonable for the residents, but you may want to increase the fee for non-residents.
With, according to Green Acres law, and that's a Green Acres property, unfortunately, we are only allowed to charge twice as much as a resident fee.
Okay.
That's the limit.
Thank
All
you.
right, so is the pleasure of the council to have this crafted into an ordinance that we can take action on?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Mayor.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Anything else, Ms.
Okay,
Schlegel?
thank you. I believe next on the agenda, I don't have the agenda in front of me.
Challenger
is
League is
Challenger
10-2?
League. Yes.
Okay, please proceed. Challenger League, Councilman Walsh has requested that we talk about initiating a baseball/softball league for special needs children, and I think you prepared a packet for us.
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Well, in addition to the request that I received from Councilman Walsh, my department has received a request for a number of sports, including cheerleading and other sports, as far as Challenger Leagues go. But let me just, for the benefit of the public who may not understand what a Challenger League is, the Challenger Baseball is what I'm going to focus on here right now. The Challenger is a division of Little League Baseball for children ages 5 to 18 who have physical or mental conditions that prevent safe participation in other baseball programs. The play is structured to allow players to be involved as they are able. Traditional rules are modified, and the focus is always on having fun while learning the game of baseball. No score is kept. Each batter plays every inning, and everyone plays the entire game. Each player is assigned a buddy who encourages the players to bat and makes plays themselves and just helps them out, runs down the bases with them, shows them where to go, educates them a little bit on the rules of baseball. However, the buddy is always nearby to help when needed. Use a soft baseball, obviously, for safety reasons. The mission of the Challenger League is to provide quality athletic and social activities for physically and or developmentally challenged youth and adults, and encouraging a supportive atmosphere. The goal is to provide sports and social activities for challenged athletes, to develop baseball skills, teamwork, and sportsmanship to the maximum of each player's ability. It's to build self-esteem and confidence through participation and social interaction, and to create a fun atmosphere and playing environment for our members. It's to promote community awareness and participation in the program. The overall goal of a Challenger League is to give everyone a chance to play regardless of limitations. Now, the resources that are needed to get a Challenger League started include a facility, volunteers, uniforms, equipment, and someone to really coordinate schedule, registrations, insurance, etc. So after looking at this and weighing all the amount of resources needed, the resources that my department has presently, my recommendation is that our first Challenger project should be baseball, formed as a pilot program with the support of the National Little League Association. Howell Township should engage assistance from all 3 Little Leagues. Presently, we do not have the department resources to start the Challenger League autonomously. Many volunteers are needed to successfully create a consistent buddy base. Howell North Little League has expressed interest in helping the township get started, and I'm sure when I reach out to Howell South and Howell Central, they would be willing as well. The recreation staff would certainly offer any knowledge we can to get this program off the ground. Should this endeavor be successful, we can budget accordingly and explore grant opportunities in the future for future programming. And there is a grant out there for Challenger Baseball. And obviously, in this cycle, we did not, the grant cycle is over because Little League Baseball is over. So what I anticipate is to apply for the grant with the assistance of the Little Leagues for next year's Little League season. So that'll give us time to rally everyone together, build that volunteer base, figure out exactly what we need, who's going to do the scheduling, what facility we're going to use, maybe change facilities between North, South, Central. But and reach out to Tony Richardson, who is the district Little League commissioner. So I think that the pilot program backed by the National Little League Association is the way we want to go first. If it's successful, we can certainly add the other programs, but let's see how this goes.
Great.
All right,
We will
let's
also
see.
accept children, by the way. The Little League, it says to 18 years old, but we will accept them to any age as long as they're in our school system. I don't want to turn away any children.
It's a pleasure of the council. We in agreement with Mrs. Schlegel's recommendation?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
There's no question. It's a great program. So you'll work to implement this and report
Yes,
back
I
to
will.
us. Could you, just as a courtesy, please continue, as I know you always do, to loop in the Recreational Advisory Committee?
This was actually was on the agenda for their meeting last Thursday
Great.
night, and they were 100%.
They received it favorably as well?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Ms. Schlegel,
Yes.
my son is autistic, has participated in some Challenger Leagues in other towns. Are we going to accept children from other towns that don't have?
Absolutely. Our goal here is really to service the children. That's the bottom line. I know right now, Freehold, I believe, has tennis, and I know they have basketball, and I believe they have soccer. I'm not 100% sure whether they offer baseball, but absolutely anyone in the area is more than welcome to join. In my opinion, my recommendation is we don't turn anyone away, because some towns help us out by our kids go to that town to play in their particular league. For example, the Tennis Challenger League or the Soccer Challenger League in Freehold does accept anyone that's willing to drive there. So if we can absolutely help them by offering a league possibly that they don't offer, we would more than welcome those children.
Wonderful.
I know my son played in the Freehold League a few years ago, and it was very rewarding.
Absolutely.
And to sit up there and watch him play. He was up at 5 o'clock in the morning on Sundays putting on his
Put that uniform on.
Well,
That's absolutely right.
I've had some parents from some other towns, because I've been talking about this for a little while, and they've asked me, Bob, would we be able to bring our children? It'd be a nice thing. I said, I told them I thought so, but I would look into that.
You know, absolutely. Or we're here to service the children. Doesn't matter to us.
Well, whatever I could do to help, I'll be glad to be in the mix.
Thank you.
All right?
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mrs. Schlegel. Okay, 10-3, Mr. Newcomb, come on up, sir. For the benefit of the public, this is Charles Newcomb of Banish and Associates. He is both the township's planner and the planning board's planner. The planning board has completed its recommended master plan updates and alterations, and as a result, we now need to begin to take action on implementing the new zoning recommendations that have been prepared for us. I'm going to keep this discussion hopefully to about 10 minutes. We need to talk about time, and we need to talk about, obviously, an approach. So, Mr. Chinesky, do you have any preliminary opening comments on this, sir?
Mayor, again, this isn't to get into the meat of the zoning ordinances at this time, but it's a big package, so what I'd like to do is...
Mr. Schneider, would you also, sir, if you don't mind, since you're the chairman, would you come on up, please?
What I'd like to do is kind of get council to give us some direction as to how we ought to proceed in dividing it up. And I asked Mr. Newcomb to speak about his, through his experience, how we might approach this.
Okay. Thank you.
And
appreciate that very
just
much.
And Chuck, before you get started, I know you noted on number 11, building design standards, but there was an agreement already that that's going to be the first thing we're going to handle. And we're actually have that in draft form, and hopefully we'll be hearing that in July or August.
I wanted to,
Good.
I included that so we would have 14 categories rather than 13.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Welcome, Mr. Newcomb. Mr. Schneider, what do you have for us, gentlemen?
Well, as the board knows, Mr. Schneider drafted or sent you a letter back, I think, about a month ago in May, asking the council to consider making the changes to the land use ordinance that, in essence, would implement the policies of the newly adopted land use element. What we've done, as you know, as the council or planning board was working on the land use plan, all right, it simultaneously was developing ordinances changes which in essence would implement the policies of the land use plan. So we kind of, as we were kind of doing two things at the same time, not only just developing the land use plan, but also developing these ordinance packages. The handout that I gave you basically identifies 14 areas where we need changes within the ordinance. What we did, the planning board did, was we also identified many of these items within the re-examination report that the planning board conducted, so that, for example, in the last item under the land use map, if the board council so desires to make the zoning ordinance changes that are included with the land use map, you would not have to do individual notices. You would be covered under the provisions of the land use law.
Is that your recommendation?
And that's the recommendation that we would go.
Right. Anyone have an objection to acting in that way? Everyone understand what that means?
It would save money.
Explain it in
Okay.
layman's terms.
If the township does a re-examination report, all right, which itemizes, lays out various tasks for the planning board to make changes in its plans, all right, there is the individual notice procedure in terms of zoning does not have to be carried out. And one of the issues, the reason we've run right now the changes, and where we made changes, for example, from ARE6 zoning to land conservation open space, the file is huge. I mean, in essence, we would be notifying, for example, Monmouth County, a lot of public entities simply about that change. The other changes are very incremental or pretty incremental. For example, there's areas where we changed from AER3 to AER4. They would be pretty extensive in terms of individual notices and things of that nature.
Let me ask you a question.
And there's always the issue of the ordinance becoming void if you miss one of the notices.
The only concern I think that we would have is there going to be a resident in our community that in some way, shape, or form could be overlooked in doing it your way,
Okay.
or your suggested way.
There is that possibility that an individual, sitting home who does not, participate in terms of, following the planning board, following council, basically reading the paper, things of that nature may be, unaware of it. What we would do is, in terms of the overall notice, all right, we would identify, as part of the notice portion, all right, that you would advertise would be the individual block and lots and the individual names that we can identify, so that, in essence, if they see the notice in the paper, they, in essence, would be, basically have that opportunity to.
Mr. Chernesky, what's your recommendation to us?
I would encourage council to go along with Mr. Newcomb's recommendation. I have been involved in situations where one property owner, because of a glitch in a database, wasn't notified, and an entire ordinance was voided to the community's detriment at large. So I think his approach is the safer bet.
Any questions or concerns on that item? Going in that way?
My only comment would be, I now pester Jeffrey as I normally do. Keep in mind what the cost incurs, the astronomical cost that would be incurred by the township's residents. Because what did we spend when we went to the last zone change? Like, it was an astronomical number. It was in the double digits.
That was 30-something, almost $40,000, and that did not include the whole
One.
town.
No, that was just one.
That was
that
one specific
change.
area. If
Yeah.
we have to notice
Well, this is not the
almost
whole
all the
town.
town.
This is a pretty substantial
Yes.
number of people,
Right.
all right, but it is not the whole township. I mean,
Right.
I assure you that
Right.
it's not the whole township.
So what you're suggesting is doing it this way is the most economical, and it's the
It-
safest from a land use perspective.
Right, exactly.
Okay, any objections to that? Let's put that piece aside. Okay.
What do
So-
you do if a citizen's overlooked, though?
In other words, the citizen
Yeah.
doesn't do his homework, I mean, in terms of following up the process. Well, one of the things that we would do, I would recommend to council, is that you not just simply have one public hearing, and you also not have a public hearing where you adopt the changes in that evening.
Right now.
In most municipalities, we recommend at least 2 public hearings, all right, with no action taken. In other words, you would introduce the ordinance, all right, you would have a public hearing, a separate public hearing at another date, and then another follow-up public hearing at another date, and then on the fourth go-around, then you could be in a position to adopt. So hopefully the newspapers do their job in terms of, first of all, we will advertise, we will list all those individuals, all right, and we will also, provide 4 opportunities for individuals to be heard.
Mayor, also, one thing we can do is we could take the map of the community and crosshatch those areas that are being looked at and put that on Channel 77.
Can we also have that paper available at the library, where if somebody wanted to come in and they could physically look through that?
We would make that wherever you so designate, the library, wherever you feel, the manager's office, the planning office, the land use office. I mean, we'll make maps available those maps available, plus the listing, the printout, which basically lists the block and lots and the individuals' names.
It was going to be my recommendation to the council that we have a public hearing at Middle School North and a public hearing at Middle School South, that we advertise those on television, that we take out full-page ads in the paper that show the map and highlight those areas being affected in the event you are not one of those people, and that in addition, we put all the information on the township website so that you could
Right.
go in, click further, and get a more detailed inventory, so that we're going out of our way to make certain that no one gets overlooked. So, I mean, we'll leave that obviously to the manager and a clerk, but does anyone have a problem with those items?
Not at all.
Okay. What else,
And
Mr.
any other suggestions that you might make in terms of, public outreach? Website was one of the recommendations we were going to make, also. So we can do that. That's pretty much it.
Is there some, I mean, obviously, there's a tremendous amount of ordinances for us to go through. We're going to start working on the facade building design first, but I mean, is the list that you have these here, this 1 through 8, for example, is this the order we can expect to receive the individual ordinances for our consideration?
Well, we have them done.
Okay.
I mean, I can turn them over to Mr. Gannon and start working with him to basically put them in ordinance
Yeah,
form.
I mean, my recommendation to council is we can't act soon enough on this, and that we should take advantage of a typically light legislative summer calendar. We're not normally introducing all kinds of ordinances in July and August, so this may fill up the docket if we could do that. Anyone disagree? Comments?
Yeah.
I think we need to.
All right,
move
so
on.
you'll begin to work on this with manager and the township attorney, and I think Mr. Chinesky knows primarily from our goals and objectives which ones we want to see first. But you're saying they're all done?
They're all done.
Okay.
Are there height limitations that we've spoken about in the past in any of these new ordinances?
Now, I have not included the height limitations that we've discussed, though my understanding was there was an ordinance being drafted which basically reflected your desires.
Yeah, you're going to do that first.
Yeah.
Two things are working.
That's coming up probably next voting session for introduction.
Yeah, two things that I thought we were going to work on, that height and the building design. Those were,
Yeah, we just said we're doing number 11 first.
right.
Right, we're doing
Right.
number 11 first, and
Right.
that
And the
item
height.
we have to deal with.
All right, so we should begin to expect to start seeing some of these ordinances pop up soon.
Right.
To get back to the question about a public hearing, it's your recommendation then that we get all of these and that we almost in essence act on all of them simultaneously.
Yeah, in other words, you introduce all of them, all right. Some of them are really minor. For example, item 6, all you're doing is changing the name of an existing zone. You're changing it from ARE1 to R1. It is not really reflective of a zone where you're doing conservation of agriculture, in essence. And
What I would recommend, Mr.
So-
Chudniewski, is that we get these in a workshop packet and that we afford at least 2 workshops to go through this. Because as we've seen with some of these more complex ordinances, things crop up that we want to make sure we have our ducks in a row. So we should at least have 2 workshops when we go through them before we attempt to open up these for
Yeah.
public hearing. We don't want to be caught.
The first item, you
unaware.
actually got a letter from Tom on, that was Mr. Boland's recommendation.
Yes.
And that is the type of explanation I would
Just saw them in there.
prepare for you
Good.
in terms of how the ordinances would work.
I'd like to be clear about something if I could. When are we going to work up putting a height restriction
Right. We
back on our ordinances?
okay. We have 3 ordinances ready to go. I just really honestly didn't feel we were ready to deal with them tonight because of the budget items that we have to go through. But we have the hotel ordinance, we have the height restriction ordinance, and then we also have the design standards ordinance. Those are 3 that are on my desk. I feel pretty comfortable that we're close to getting them to you. It's just that there was more pressing issues that we have to deal
Will
with
we have them
tonight.
before the end of the month, Mr. Chudniewski?
Yes.
We will.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
before the end of the month, we'll have them.
Yes.
Presumably, we could begin to take action the first meeting in the month of July.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else for these 2 gentlemen? Mr. Chairman, do you have any comments, sir?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just would like to comment and that Mr. Newcomb has done a tremendous job over the last 2 years on this master plan, above and beyond what I think some of our professionals should be doing. And I think the entire planning board, and I know you do, would like to give him accolade for the amount of work. And I also want to thank our new manager, who is also a planner, has put in his expertise in helping, and I think it's a tremendous asset to Howell Township, and I want to thank them both.
Mr. Chairman, we appreciate your comments, and it goes without saying, and I'll embarrass you for a minute, that we appreciate your stewardship in seeing this through to its conclusion. We should also recognize that your predecessor, Chairman Corzine, got the ball rolling and endured a rather tumultuous aspect of this project, and under your stewardship, you were able to bring everyone together and see it through to its completion. So our hats off to you and the board, and certainly Mr. Newcomb as well. So thanks for getting us to it. It's a long time
Thank
coming.
you, Mr. Mayor, and also for your efforts as a member of the planning board, Cynthia as a member of the planning board, Peter last year as a member of the planning board. You all did a tremendous job.
And what, my chopped liver?
Councilman Walsh, you're terrific.
Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate your time. No problem. Okay. All right, 10-4, outstanding budget items related to capital and COPS grant. Mr. Chernetsky, why don't you walk us through this, sir?
Mayor, at our next meeting, we will be adopting the budget, scheduled for adoption. If there are any amendments to the budget, we discussed discussing them tonight so that we can simultaneously introduce a budget amendment, and then we can adopt those amendments in time to get our tax bills out. So that's the schedule we've set up for ourselves. There were, I guess, two categories of issues. Under the operating budget, the outstanding issue was the COPS grant for acquiring school security cameras. The grant is a match, so we will be receiving $252,000, and the community has to match that with an additional $252,000. It will install a very sophisticated security cameras and security systems, including training, throughout our middle schools. When we last discussed this matter, the question came up regarding the school district contributing towards this. In speaking with the superintendent, she brought this item to the Board of Ed's attention, and they've agreed to enter into agreement with the township where they would contribute up to $50,000 over a number of years towards this. They indicating they didn't budget for it this year, but that they can find, they have some security money set aside, and that they would use this money over a period of 10 years to get us $50,000 towards it. My recommendation is that in reviewing all the items that we would be acquiring and the training we would be getting, I would strongly encourage council to consider this. It's a significant investment, and it's a large grant we would be getting for it. And in this day and age, securing our schools is an important objective. Obviously, you have to weigh that.
I'll open it up. In this day and age, there is no question that it is absolutely important to ensure that the schools are safe. I was rather disturbed that we were not integrated enough to know that the Freehold Regional Board of Education was installing their own equipment. So how and when we applied for this, we didn't know that in advance is disturbing to me, but it's water under the bridge. I'll be delicate on this last point. It's very nice the Board of Education would like to give us $5,000 for each of the next 10 years, and I realize how tough it is, but they have a $104 million budget, and I am absolutely dumbfounded, which my wife tells me I'm often dumbfounded, but I'm dumbfounded that out of a $104 million budget, they can find $5,000. I mean, it is
Up
absolutely...
to 252, that's a...
It just, we want to have a good relationship with the board. They do a great job. We have a world-class district. That's not the point. They have a $104 million budget, and they can find $5,000. I'm going to watch every board meeting to look at the transfer of funds, every single meeting, because there is no possibility they can't come up with more than $5,000. I'm very upset with this. I'm very upset about this. And I'm just going to leave it at that, and the rest of the council can make their remarks. But it's, in my judgment, it's not credible to make that kind of a public statement. It's not even remotely believable to suggest that they can find only $5,000.
Well,
I'm shocked.
Again, our first responsibility as elected officials locally is for the health, safety, and welfare of our citizens. And I think the school administrators, their first responsibility is to protect the kids in the schools. So this goes right to that. I mean, this is to provide security to the school systems. And the fact that they only allocate that little amount to it doesn't speak well to their first priority.
Well, the only...
A safe environment for the kids.
In fairness, some of the blame lies in this municipality, because we did not tell them they needed to put any money aside. Not being critical of anyone in particular, but the municipality applied for it in a way that didn't require them to put any money in the budget.
That works for this year, but what about the next 9 years?
They could do it next year.
That's exactly the point. But even put that aside, and I said I wouldn't say much more on this, and I've already broken my own rule, but because it's just so outrageous.
It is, it's
that
outrageous.
They can't find more than $5,000 now.
Think about the monies we set aside in our budget this year for protecting our town, Homeland Security dollars. It was some of the areas that we could not actually cut when we were looking at operating expenses. We actually left that there because, again, our first charge is the safety of the citizens, and their first charge should be the safety of the students.
Mrs. Shoemaker, you have a comment?
I couldn't agree with both Mayor, yourself, and Councilman Tabasco. I was appalled by the letter. I was, a positive gesture that they felt generous enough to give us $5,000. But as a school where your children are, and in light of the situation here in home security, I found it, to me, it was an embarrassment to send. I would have just said, no, we can't do it, as to send the letter that they did. I must say that. And I would implore them to keep their $5,000 this year and put it in their budget for next year and give us the 50% or match.
Right.
Because if the school that's their priority. I mean, that should be their number one priority, is the safety and the welfare of every child there. And by the statement that they sent out, they send a very poor message.
I don't think people realize that 30% of the entire Howell population is in school every day.
Correct.
Mr. Walsh, you have any comments, sir?
I agree. I said last meeting they should chip in, period. I still think we should go before them formally at a board meeting and say we would like you to pay for half of this. Let them say no publicly. I don't think they would. It would look pretty foolish of them to say no publicly. We can't find $12,500 a year, and the township find $12,500 a year to pay for security of our children, especially when another $252,000 is coming from the state.
Well, then, let me...
I offered to go stand before them. I'd still offer today. Next board meeting, I'll go stand before them and ask.
Why don't we do this? Mr. Tabasco is the liaison of the Board of Ed. You've indicated a willingness to go. Why don't we send the two of you to their next meeting? The difficulty we have is we need to act on this budget next week.
Correct.
So we are going to have to proceed in a certain direction, notwithstanding Mr. Filiatro about to tell me something.
I just want to make a point that as far as the budget goes here, it's an all or nothing proposition. If there's, I mean, it's nice if we can get some funding from the schools in the future. That would mean no change in the budget this year from where it sits now.
We need to do it.
So.
Mayor, it goes without saying that we do have a choice, but I don't like to use that where I think that
we couldn't take
it's
that choice.
incumbent upon us to do this.
Yes.
What message would be saying that we couldn't do it?
All right, so what's the judgment of the council? We want to leave this 252 in?
There is one other thing that you need to know is I do have need to do an amendment. We have two other grants that have come in that I need to add to the budget. So we will be doing an amendment whether we change this grant or not.
Okay. Did you have something else, Mr.
I do, Mayor. In complete respect to the frustration that council expressed, I feel obligated to jump to the defense of those who wrote the grant and secured at least $252,000 in value for the
Correct.
community. And just to note that it's my understanding that under the category of COPS grants, there's never been an experience whereby we had to even consider requesting another entity. For those who write the grants, where they had to engage another entity in raising the money for it. So it's not something we've necessarily done before, so it's lessons learned in that respect. And I do want to commend the officers that worked on the grant. And,
Absolutely.
And as the manager, I certainly learned my lesson before we present these things to the governing body. We should go to the other agencies that are involved.
All right, so it seems as if this is going to stay. We've already talked about salaries and wages, right? Did we not cover that?
Yes.
I'm just going off your June 9th memo.
Correct.
Okay.
The other items that Councilman Malave asked us to focus on was in the area of capital improvements. And there were a number of items that he listed, and I prepared a little background on all of those items except for the stormwater management plan. And unfortunately, Mr. Nunziato's not here to talk about that, but I can generally cover it. The first item is, oh, hold on, let me get my list.
A little late.
How do I do it? Excuse me, just 1 second. Okay. The items that were asked to be reviewed include the Oak Glen basketball replacement, implementation of stormwater management rules, DPW heavy truck, the 1990 truck, the North Howell Little League agreement, office furniture and storage equipment, and replacement of flagpoles.
Those are the ones that he asked.
For more information on.
I apologize, I don't have them in front of me. Would you just say them again? I want to write them down.
Sure. The Oak Glen basketball court replacement, implementation of stormwater management rules, DPW truck, the 1990 International, the North Howell Little League agreement, office furniture, storage equipment, and replacement of various flagpoles. So those were the outstanding items that council and through Mr. Malave asked for more data on.
So we'll take them one at a time. Oak Glen basketball?
Sure.
Okay.
Do you have this memorandum?
Yeah.
Your June
Okay.
9 memo, yes.
Fine.
Okay. I think what I'll do is ask Colleen Schlegel to sort of explain the need for this project.
Ms. Schlegel, talk to us about this Oak Glen Park basketball replacement.
Okay, as you can see in your packet, there should be pictures of the basketball courts. Mr. Chernetsky and myself went out to the basketball courts and took some pictures to kind of give you an idea of what the problem is. As you can see, there are some extensive cracks that have become a safety issue. Now, in the past, this is not the first time this has been in the budget. In the past, we have tried to do repairs, and we're beyond Band-Aids right now. My main concern is that we're at a safety. Right now, we're at an issue of safety, and in my professional opinion, it is imperative that these be fixed.
Why is it a safety issue?
Well, what happens is when the courts crack, and the crack is probably like an 1.5 to 2 inches wide. Well, what happens is now you're having cases of like the toe of someone's sneaker getting caught in it. It is no longer flush. All right, there might be a little bit of a trip hazard, those types of things. Now, you need to remember that we run basketball leagues out there. It's not a situation where these are the basketball courts in town. So it's not a case where we can, just shut them down and say, okay, you got to go somewhere else. This is a very, very heavily used. These courts are very, very heavily used. We run both youth basketball and an adult league there, and it's a concern.
So this is a maintenance. This is strictly maintenance for this particular park or
Yes, it
whatever.
is. Yes, it is.
All right.
All right, any questions from Mr. Schlegel on this?
Yeah, just to talk about the maintenance program a little bit more. So I guess at some point there was some filling tar put in and sealed, and then over a period of years you're
That's
supposed to replace periodically. When do you think the last time was that these courts were ripped up and actually redone in their entirety?
Well,
Was it the original time the park was built?
We did a Band-Aid. The only repair we've done, they have never been ripped up and replaced. We've done some Band-Aid treatment where they come in with the that color coating, and they try to fill the crack, and then they repaint it, and they use like a gummy type of material
Right.
that fills. So that's what we did last, and I'm going to say that's been at least probably 10 years.
So typical to road services, too. Usually you're milling and redoing about it once every 20 years and doing the Band-Aid stuff in between. So you're saying it's probably been since the origination of the park,
Right.
the last time this was really done. So that's what, 20?
Which was like 84 maybe, 85.
So it has been 20 years.
Right,
Okay.
Been over 20 years.
Yeah.
right.
And there is no other alternative? You have looked into,
I can't see any other alternative but to redo the courts.
can anybody else see any alternative? Or
I mean, if I could, believe me, if I could find an alternative, I would have had it already repaired. There doesn't seem to be another alternative.
Okay.
I've had some companies out there, and, you know, I understand that they're commercial, they're looking for business, so of course they're going to say that, but everyone that I've spoken to, you know, every convention I've talked to people with that put courts in, that repair courts, and this is beyond repair. It's not one crack either. I want to make that
No,
clear.
we see in
It's
the picture.
numerous
some
cracks.
others.
So let me ask you the next set of questions. I think we're sort of all in consensus here that it needs to be fixed.
Right.
Is the best thing to do to replace what was originally there, which is, you know, using macadam or aggregate, whatever you want to call it, as opposed to
Right.
whatever new surface may have come out in the last 20 years that might be better long-term?
Longevity.
Well,
What experiences do
The-
we have with that?
Now, keep in mind, this has been on there for 20-some years.
right.
Right.
So
Right,
that's
right.
longevity.
And I have to agree with Councilwoman Shoemaker on this one, that we have had a great experience with this surface.
Okay.
Good.
Also, any state-of-the-art new surface is always experimental, and there's not a lot of background on it, and I will tell you this, the cost goes up. So we understand the budget crisis that we're in, and we want to try to do it as reasonably and
So where I was going
economically
with that
as
is
we
that you
can.
have explored that, and this still seems to be the...
Right.
Okay.
We have a good experience with this.
All right.
Next.
All right, what's the recommendation here? Anyone have a problem with this? Are we going to leave this in?
I would say yes.
This is a maintenance issue. I would say that I could very comfortably say the majority of this council is in favor of continuing and furthering our recreation facilities, and this is part of the maintenance of having those facilities.
What's next, Mr. Chunietsky?
If I can call your attention to the DPW
Trucks.
trucks, page 14 in your handout.
By the way, this is a terrific handout.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
The two trucks that are being replaced are actually currently the 1989 and the 1990. Both trucks are currently being used by the Department of Parks and Recreation. So the new trucks that would be purchased would actually go into Public Works, and then the older trucks would be cycled down for pulling mowers and such, instead of hauling like using the dump bodies and stuff. But what I wanted to point out to council, if you look at the model years, I took the 1989 truck and I looked at the repair log over the past 5 years for that truck, which you've already agreed to replace, but I just wanted to show you this little study. And over the past 5 years, we've spent $27,000 in repairs. That doesn't account for downtime where the vehicle wasn't being used. The 1990 truck, which Councilman Malavi wanted more information on, over the past 5 years, we spent $10,767 on. And then I just grabbed similar models, a 95 model, a 96 model, and a 2001 model, same type of vehicles to show their repair costs. If you total those repair costs over 5 years, it's $58,000. Now, let's assume we don't go on a repair cycle, and we try to just keep fixing the vehicles. Let's assume all these vehicles were the 89 model. Well, the difference between the $58,000 and if we didn't replace these trucks and get new ones, it would have been $137,000 based on repair history. So that just kind of demonstrates the importance of replacing these vehicles. We do keep a log of repairs. We keep a history. But what the history doesn't show is how long these vehicles are off the road, which costs us value as well. They're off the road longer when we have to repair them because it's harder and harder to find parts. And in some case, we have to manufacture the parts, which also doesn't necessarily show up in the log because it's done in a different area of Public Works. So I'm not sure how much more information you wanted on it.
So this amount to be raised, this is $7,000 in down payment on a $140,000 vehicle for the 89 and the 90?
Right.
So it's $14,000 in capital down payments to get $280,000 worth of trucks.
Correct. And I attached some material from a publication from the International City Managers Association called Municipal Benchmarks.
Oh, I see.
And it gives you some data on this, the importance of replacing these vehicles once they hit a certain year and a certain mileage.
You do your homework, Mr.
Yeah, yeah.
Janicki.
Thank you.
Very, very detailed report.
This is exceptional.
The one comment I will add to what you just mentioned, Tom, is that having a log of how long each truck is down is actually a good idea for future benefit, too. So if you haven't already incorporated that, I'm pretty sure you probably already did, but go ahead and start doing that for administrations down the road.
You know, actually, your questions have resulted in that now going to happen. Because I was happy to find we have a detailed log, but I also realized what we were sort of missing from it.
Great.
So, in your professional opinion, after reviewing all the costs between repairs and buying new ones, you suggest that we buy 2 new trucks?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What's next, Mr. Chunietsky?
Okay, Mayor, I believe it was last year at some point, the North Howell Little League, the governing body entered into an agreement with North Howell Little League to, basically the agreement was that a building, a clubhouse, concession stand, restroom facility would be built at the site of the fields. And in exchange, that facility would be built with a lot of labor from volunteers and volunteer material donations, and the township would then make a contribution to the North Howell Little League in the amount of approximately $150,000. A few months ago, the representatives from North Howell Little League requested an additional $260,000 to complete the building. We have listed this item under the capital projects based on what we heard at the time to be the general merits of the program and not letting a building sit uncompleted. But I would say at this point, Mayor and council members, my recommendation is that we actually no amendment necessarily needs to be made, because what you're going to be doing is introducing a bond ordinance for all these items. But when it comes to do that, my recommendation is that we do not include funding this request in the bond ordinance. What I am recommending at this time, after meeting with representatives from North Howell Little League, is that there be a meeting with the architect. There is a new architect working on this project from the project you were presented with. We are going to meet with the architect, and we are going to meet with our construction official to determine what essentially is needed to get the building operational. From that, we would prepare some options for council to consider by way of an amended agreement. So first, let me say this: even if this project was kept in the capital ordinance that you'll be getting once the budget's adopted, we could not spend the money until the agreement was amended. Okay. But having said that, and in light of numerous concerns, I wouldn't even include it in that ordinance at this time until we can come up with agreement options for you. Secondly, I do want to add this note that from my observations, we've planned facilities because we were such a lot of development that's come online over the past years. Has made us have to respond quickly to needs for facilities. What I think we need in this community is a facilities master plan or a parks and recreation master plan that prioritizes facility investments. And those investments ought to be based on the needs of a community of our size, of our population, and of our demographics, so that we're not considering these issues one at a time, but within a larger scope, and so that all the constituent parts, the seniors, the various sports leagues, all agree as to what the priorities of the township ought to be. So having said that, it's my recommendation that we not include it, and I would look to your guidance.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the council? Any questions, comments? Actually, before we do that, let me just recap it to make sure I have it. You're going to convene a meeting with the architect and our construction officials to determine what needs to be done on an immediate basis to have the building open for occupancy, so to speak, so it can be brought online. And then you're going to prepare options for amendments to the existing agreement to, I guess, complete whatever else needs to be done to bring it beyond just its bare occupancy.
All right.
That sounds fair.
And what's your timeline of when all these things will happen?
We'll have to arrange meetings with the
Within
professionals
the
from
month or
North
whatever,
Howell,
meetings
Little
and
League.
stuff like that?
Yeah, as soon as we can get a meeting together.
Okay. Questions from the council?
Well, I just have one. I think Tom's last point, which is about there being a plan for facilities, is a good one, because although I'm very pro youth sports, and I know most of us up here are, I can tell you that we have a lot of employees right now working in our township under very difficult conditions as far as the rooms that they're in and et cetera. So there have to be an agreement already for a certain amount, and then on the fly, we were almost ready to give them a lot more money. And we know other people in the town are working under poor conditions. That might not have sat well with those people long term and could have hurt morale in the town. So there does need to be a plan, even beyond just a recreational master plan. There needs to be a total facilities master plan, so to speak, for all buildings here in the town, which then everybody can get behind and rally behind and understand the priorities, as Tom was saying.
Mr. Walsh, we'll go to you next, sir. Comments?
Do we have a recreational master plan in place now?
It's approximately 10 years old, and from what I gather,
1996.
1996, and so it's not relevant given the growth patterns.
Is it something in the future we are going to revise every 2 years, share with the sports federations, the different organizations? Or?
Well, what I'd like to do is have staff do some preliminary research as to what component the municipal land use law kind of spells out a rough outline of what ought to be in the plan, so we can start gathering the data. And for next year's budget, I would recommend we fund a full parks and recreation master plan, and that it be given to the Recreation Advisory Committee to organize representatives from all the constituent components of the community. So I think a lot of preliminary work could be done now.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to make sure whatever we do that we absolutely run this through the Recreational Advisory Committee. I mean, they're there for a purpose. They volunteer a lot of their time. Many organizations are represented. Many disciplines are represented. And it's more obviously than just active sports. We have many people who aren't able to participate in sports, and I'm always reminded by residents that we don't do enough for kids that are involved in the theater. We don't do enough for kids that are involved in non-sporting kind of venues. So we definitely need to make sure the Recreation Advisory Committee runs point on this with the rec director and whoever else.
And I think it's important to note, if I think you all received a copy of the New Jersey League of Municipalities magazine, and it talked about the aging of America, aging baby boomers, and the very unique needs that baby boomers have in terms of preferences. And they represent an incredible, what we say as planners is a transfer of wealth might happen in New Jersey if they don't fix the tax system. All that discretionary income is going to head south. But as an economic development issue,
We'll have it before we're seniors at this rate.
I think at the local level, we need to do what we can to keep Howell attractive for that cohort as well. So it's, as much as it is meeting the needs of children, it's also an economic development issue as well.
Well, as far as this building, I mean, one of the things that have concerned me from speaking to you, to other people in code enforcement and stuff, is the process that was put in place here. I can't understand. I believe we have laws and ordinances that govern how we have to buy things. They have to go through purchasing, and none of them were followed here. And I think we got to put something in place so that doesn't happen in the future. Mind you, I am not for leaving a half-empty building. I think that would be demoralizing to the people in North Howell Little League, to the families that have put a lot in. But I think there's a definitive process that we need to follow in the future. And I don't think this followed a process that is by the book, so to say.
I just want to intervene. I'm not, maybe you can fill us in on not following the letter of the law, because the agreement was that the building was going to be built, and we were going to buy it back.
Right.
So many of the processes that certain equipment had to go through our purchasing department, what have you, that was not a part of this arrangement, as it was my understanding, because the building was being built, and we were buying it back for a set assessed price.
Right.
And that was a part of the arrangement that got blessing from bond counsel, township council, rec department. Ms. Schlegel is shaking her head. And I'm not in any way arguing, disagreeing with you. I just want to set the record straight that no one leaves here thinking, oh my goodness, they were able to get around enforcement or purchasing requirements.
I'm not implying anything to that. Just there is a process to build the buildings on township land. And I don't think this is the normal process to building a building on township land. I don't.
Yeah, I think as some of the people that are on this dais would recall, that with the limited amount of funds that the organization had first come to us with, by allowing them to actually build it and we buy it back, the thinking at the time was it was going to elongate their capacity to get things done, perhaps potentially more quickly, and not be subjected to some of the things that municipal entities have to be subjected to, which is the reason why it costs the United States government $150 to buy a hammer we can get from Home Depot for $4.
Let me just comment a little bit on what Councilman Walsh said. You were under wisely the direction of the bond counsel at the time, but that was for that agreement.
That's right.
And I think the concern here is that under what was being requested, we're not sure there'd be that same comfort level, which is why we need to
going forward, whatever the management team recommends is best practice. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with it. We want to comply with what best practices would dictate to get the building finished as quick as possible, and to make certain that we're complying with, the best way to make that happen. I think we all agree on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there some specific point that you're, because I'm really thoroughly confused on what point you were trying to make. Is there some specific point that something that was a wrongdoing?
I spoke with the many parties involved with this. I've spoken to Vito, Chet, Tom, and at the end, we're left here with $150,000, a building with no roof, no windows, no nothing, but the township didn't oversee the building of the building. So this is what we're left with if we don't give them another $230,000 right now. I'm not comfortable that's the way a township should handle the building of a building on township property. I'm not comfortable with it. What do you want? I don't think I'd ever be comfortable with it. If you're comfortable with this.
I understand your point, though. I thought something, I think it was, your question was, your statement was misleading to me, because I thought something was done not by ordinance or by permit, or something was permitted.
That was my initial reaction.
Oh, no,
That was my initial reaction.
All right.
And again, I guess the only takeaway is hindsight is always 20/20. I have great respect for those individuals that you mentioned, but when the management team at the time outlined this as an architecture to proceed, none of those issues was raised as a concern. And along the way, absent my recollection, none of those individuals have come to us to say, hey, we want to make you aware of certain things. So I want us to be careful that we don't cast even a perceived aspersion on our professionals, any volunteer group, the people that have donated money to the building, anybody. I mean, there was a go-in understanding that it was going to proceed in this way. I just wish if those individuals that have brought up these comments now would have raised those as observations at the time we were building the business plan to do this a year ago. It's a shame they didn't bring up those as potential concerns then. Maybe we would not have had some of these issues that have come up. I guess it's a lesson learned.
I think to say it a different way, because Bobby's kind of saying sort of what I was saying. We were presented with, $150,000, and we thought we'll end up with a building, and we're done with it. And a good analogy, I guess, would be to compare it to like the Abbott districts, having spent as much as they did and still having incomplete structures all over the state, which left a really bad taste in the mouths of a lot of taxpayers. So here we have something analogous. We expected something to be completed for an amount of money that we just passed only 10 months ago, and now we're being asked for an amount actually greater than the original amount to go ahead and finish this. So I'll go back to what I said a few minutes ago, which is that for us to go ahead and just pass that like that while we know there's still other structures that are really bad in town would possibly create a bad morale situation here in this town. So I kind of understand where Bobby's coming from. Not that there was something not done on the up and up, but that, this is leaving a pretty bad taste.
All right, so you're going to convene these meetings, Mr. Chernetsky?
Yes. We can't leave that building exposed to the elements, so we need to get a plan, and I think there have been some lessons learned going forward.
Yeah, I don't believe, from my opinion, I don't think that that's an option.
No,
This
it's not.
building must be completed.
Oh, yeah.
It has to be complete.
Yeah,
Well,
at least
pro,
secured from the elements
It's got to be complete.
and made functional.
All right, so you'll report back to us in short order on that meeting.
Yes.
What's next in your packet?
Okay, well, I gave on page 18, I provided a breakdown on office furniture. There was a storage and other equipment, an $85,000 request, the bulk of which is to replace our copy machines.
And once again, we're on a maintenance program for that, which was a lot of due diligence on our purchasing department.
And there were also questions about the flagpoles, and I asked Buildings and Grounds to get me pictures of what they were trying to describe, and so you can see how the flagpoles are leaning on page 20.
That's a
There's
safety hazard.
It's a safety hazard. The brackets and the foundations are, the footing, excuse me, are cracking, and they simply need to be replaced.
Okay.
Wasn't fireworks mentioned also?
Oh, I'm sorry, that was
me. But I lost that battle. I suggested that we didn't need fireworks.
Right.
At Howell Day, we have 4th of July, and as I recall, I was perceived to be the Grinch who stole Howell Day.
Absolutely.
And I think it was 4-1 to leave them in. I think it's $10,000 that we should save the taxpayers, and that we have fireworks on 4th of July.
I think there might be a slight update.
Yeah, I'll give you a little update. I have commitments from 2 sponsors that I'm happy to report.
That's what I had asked for.
Actually, one, I actually have the money in hand, and the other one, I am waiting for the check but have the commitment. So it's
So it's out of the budget.
out of the budget.
Oh, well, look at that.
I'd like to say who it is. It's Center State Mortgage, the Walsh family, and Commerce Bank.
And Commerce Bank.
Commerce Bank, yes.
There'll be fireworks on my watch.
As long as you're paying for them.
Now, there'll be fireworks.
As long as you're paying for them and the taxpayers aren't, you can have all the
So
fireworks you like.
I'm happy to report that we do have sponsors and that item.
But we have to leave the item in as an expenditure, but we have to amend the revenue side, which creates a complication, but
Right.
it's coming.
Okay.
But I'm still waiting on the check from Commerce Bank.
All right, so
As far as,
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
one comment. As far as the storm water management cost, that is something that has been a process that we've had that we by state statute we have to do, and that is a process that I think are we in our second year now? This is when we actually are forced into making
Correct.
these changes.
We are in the second year, and
Correct.
there also is, it's not a one-for-one, but there is a $26,000 offset in grant money that came along. So it doesn't cover the whole thing, but we are getting something from the state for it.
Right.
But,
This is state mandated. This is nothing that we can say we don't want that we don't want to do.
Correct.
We must. These are things that we must do. That we are, and they have allowed us a period up to this point, to where now we have to do it.
right, it includes changing out grades and
Right.
Other modifications.
There's a tremendous amount of modifications.
All right, was there anything else in your packet? I think that was it, right?
That's it. So unless council has any amendments they want us to proceed with. God willing, that's the budget.
Are there any other amendments that you'd like us to proceed with?
15 hours.
On the budget, anyone else have anything else? I'll wait till last. Anyone else on the budget?
Mayor, I just, because I know it's important to the governing body, I need to point this out. If you take the actual dollar increase and translate it into tax points, what the budget is represents is approximately 7.7 cents increase on a tax rate. Okay, if it were not for added and omitted taxes, new properties coming online, that adjusted for what that increase would be, let's say we had no revenue at all, no additional revenue whatsoever, the budget would be a tax increase of 11.75 tax points. Okay? So within that context, under the controllable operating expenses, out of a potential 11.75 cents, 1.26 cents is what we would call controllable expenses. $252,000 of that is the grant. Okay? So we are keeping O&E to a bare bones minimum.
Just like last year.
Well, last year it was down 38%.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, and if, we're looking at 0.26, portion of that might be eaten up by the fireworks. I mean, that's how.
I'll be playing with my fireworks.
That's how close we're shaving it.
You can come here every Tuesday and get all the fireworks you like.
A lot of the remaining 900,000 or so was to Homeland Security issues, which we were talking about before. So.
All right, so 1.26 is controllable.
Correct.
Keep going.
And that's I just wanted to point that out.
So everything else
not a lot
is outside of
fluff
our
in here.
control.
Correct. Unless, of course, there's pension issues, there's contractual issues. So unless we're reducing programs, that's it.
All right, anyone have anything else on the budget then they want to talk about?
I think we talked about.
It's not for me to decide. It's you guys have any other comments.
No.
So then we're going to have a
Next
adoption.
week is the adoption.
anticipated
And
adoption.
Actually, we'll have the public hearing on the
Right.
budget next week. We'll introduce an amendment. We have the Helene's grants, my grants, and we'll have a public hearing on the amendment and adoption of the budget on the 27th.
Anything else?
Well, I plan on doing the initial PowerPoint with all the revisions. Is that something
Good.
council's
Yes.
interested in?
I think
Yes.
I think we need to.
Okay.
It was very helpful.
Yep.
Okay.
That was this. I have to commend you. This was. I make sure Mr. Councilman Malave gets this because it was. You did a lot of homework there.
Thank you.
All right, 11.1, Metropolitan Furnishings Association of New Jersey, an update on transient vendors.
Where is Mrs. Kelly? Mrs. Kelly has.
You mean like tractor trailers that show up at
Yes, that park
Clocks
on
and
properties
chairs
and in a gas station and on a corner and that sell off the back of their truck, or they just unload their furniture and sell there.
Yeah, well, what this is that,
Licensing them. It's more like you're policing. You're setting an
yeah,
ordinance.
the
up.
Metropolitan Furnishings Association of New Jersey is asking us, apparently in Manalapan, they took a stance against those who sell furniture or other taxable products on the roadside, and they've taken a position by not allowing permits based on the site plan that the township has created. So they put right into, I guess on a go-forward basis, they put in the site plan approval that at no time will you be able to have somebody come on with the truck from North Carolina selling furniture or the paintings they sell. And for example, if the site has been approved as a gas station, that's what they can sell. They can't sell anything else. And the Manalapan Economic Development Committee felt that it protects the legitimate retailers who pay taxes, et cetera, and apparently they are asking that other municipalities proceed in doing something similar. So what I would recommend is that we ask our Economic Development Committee, just from a process perspective, out of courtesy, we ask our Economic Development Committee to take a look at this and to come back to us with their recommendations. My sense is we should be looking to adopt something like this. There isn't a Saturday you can't drive up and down Route 9 and somebody's standing with a sign that they're holding up, pointing you to some lot someplace or whatever the case may be. We agree? Send it to EDC?
I agree.
It's fine.
Yes, Mr. DeBasco, you'll shepherd this with the committee?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then 11.2 is a credit to our outstanding Recreation Director, the New Jersey Concrete and Aggregate Association, and the New Jersey chapter of the American Concrete Institute has given our 9/11 Memorial Ring of Arms a merit award for outstanding parks, which was presented at the 43rd Annual New Jersey Concrete Award, which was back in May. And we have a lovely certificate that I'm sure hangs proudly in the rec building. It's a real tribute to that particular structure, and thank you, Mrs. Schlegel, to you and your team. This is a wonderful award.
I need to absolutely, thank you. I absolutely have to say that the artist, Miguel Iris, I have to give him the credit for just a spectacular design and work on that project. And he is actually the one who submitted the memorial to the New Jersey chapter on the American Concrete Institute. And I want to thank him for all the work that he did on that, and he just went above and beyond.
What I'd like to ask as a follow-up to that, Ms. Woolman, if you could coordinate with Mr. Pody, I'd like to see if we can invite the designer to the July public participation meeting to get a special award of recognition from myself and the council in light of his work. If you could have her work out the details with Ms. Schlegel, and I'll put together the certificate.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Chernetsky, before we go to public?
No, sir.
Good. All right, we're going to move to a hearing of the citizens. The time is 5 minutes of 10. I don't have the...
No one
list.
has signed the list.
Okay, is there anyone here who'd like to be heard tonight in public portion? If so, please raise your hand and come forward. Yes, sir, come on up. Anyone else aside from Mr. Porcelli?
Is that right? There's 0 on the list?
Okay, that's fine. No, that's fine. Welcome, Mr. Porcelli. Just please give us for the record your name and address.
My name is Tom Porcelli. I live at 73 Sherrybrook Drive.
Welcome, Mr. Porcelli.
I appreciate it. I'm here tonight about the building at North Howell. I just think you guys need to understand what I have a couple of questions first. When we had a meeting with the township and they approved our plans and we were trying to figure out how we were going to get that building built, the first thing was we were going to have to go through you guys to buy the material. Then we had a contractor say, well, no, look, I'll build the building and I'll give it back to you for $150,000. The building was 2,700 square feet. Why is that building 4,400 square feet now? Is the one question I have. And who gave them the approval to start building that building when you had already a set of plans set up for 2,700 square feet? Now, I'm not against building a building for the kids because it should be built for the kids, but it should not be at the expense of the rest of these organizations and kids in the town. For years, sports organizations in this town have been viewed as money grubbers. And this is the exact reason why. There was no reason for that building to go to 4,400 square feet when 2,700, which Helene said was too big, because they wanted to build the $150,000 building like they have in Howell South. And we said to them, why would you want to build a $150,000 building like Howell South in a league like North Howell that's growing when we can get a $300,000 building? Because you posed the question to whoever it was, how much would that building cost in open market? And he told you, I think, between $300,000 and $350,000. And we were going to get that building for $150,000. We weren't allowed to do anything unless the township said, do it. All of a sudden, that went out the window, and they were allowed to do whatever they wanted. Now you know why you're in the position that you're in now, building a 4,400 square foot building for the additional money that might not even be the 265. They might even need more eventually to finish that building up.
I think the only thing that we found out, and I don't have all the detail, was that when other professionals looked at this, they said it was impossible for $150,000 to build the original structure. That with time, material expenses, the septic system alone is $50,000. So apparently, wherever the 150 came from, and no one's pointing fingers, it's irrelevant, wasn't a plausible number from the get-go when a variety of different township officials looked at it and said you couldn't build the original structure. I don't know anything about building. So, I mean, I think even the beginning number, wherever it came from, just perhaps wasn't the right number from the get-go.
No, because that was approved by the town. They looked at the material list. They had everything that they needed. It was done by a professional architect. Guy that's been in business for years. And he worked with another builder to design that. Those plans also went to an additional builder to look at it, because we initially had a bathroom upstairs, and the guy says, why do you want to waste money on putting a bathroom upstairs? And he cut some things out of that building. And for a building that would have taken 2 weeks in good weather to build, now you have this. My understanding is but let's play the devil's advocate. If that's the case, why did they go to 4,400 square feet?
I don't know that we can answer
know if we
that.
had
Find that
I think Mr.
question out.
Chernetsky had a meeting with the organization. I don't want to speak on anybody's behalf.
And in fairness to him, he wasn't involved.
Quite,
so he
quite
may-
honestly,
That's double the size.
that is that decision process, how that was made along the lines, I think, was still needs to be clarified, and I think that's part of the process where you have, if you're inclined to amend the agreement, that's a question for that time, because right now, obviously residents can talk about the things they want, but this was brought up under the context of the budget. I think a full discussion of this has to happen once we have the facts, and the agreement is presented to you as an amendment, because those are good questions.
Yeah,
These are all good questions.
they're all fair questions. I think one of the things that we want to steer clear of, and we all sense the undercurrent of what's gone on here, is that we all need to be careful. This is not one sports organization against the next. And I know you're not suggesting that's what it is, but there has been some concern about, well, what about this organization? What about that organization? What about this organization? I think we all need to be conscious that we're spending $6 million on a soccer and a girls' softball complex, that we're actively looking to improve the recreational amenities from a practice field perspective for Pop Warner football. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that are in play, so we don't want anyone to think that we're investing some monies in some organizations to the detriment of the next.
That's not thinking that. What I'm thinking of, it was unnecessary. If the 150 wasn't enough, then you should go back to the smaller building, not a bigger building.
Again,
Even though it would have been worthless.
I don't think I don't think we're in a position to comment on that.
Would not have been a good building.
Let me just say again, we know how much we were requested, and that's fine. That request was made, but how much above that 150, we'll actually find out, would be needed to get us going. It may not be that much over it. I don't know. So it's still may be a considerable value based on the input of the volunteers and the contributions that were received. So, at this point, it's still a little early to make a judgment.
Good. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Percy.
Thank you.
Good
Anyone else
question.
who'd like to be heard? He had his hand raised. Yes, sir. Come on up. Just give us your name and address for the record. Yes, sir. Come on up, Mr. Dungy. Welcome, Mr. Dungy. Good evening. Just give us your name and address, please, for the record.
My name is Kevin Dunshee. I live at 13 Spicy Pond Road in Howell.
And you're joined by?
Rakulia, Squonka Millbrook Road.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you for allowing us to address you this evening. Just for point of clarification to Mr. Porcelli's point, in terms of approved plans, what we really had was about 3 or 4 pages that an architect had put together of a building for the North Howell League complex. I'm not a builder myself. I've learned a lot over the past few months, and 6-8 months, in terms of what this actually takes. The plans, what approved plans are, for those of you who've built, are more like 70, 80, 90 pages. So what wasn't included in that was HVAC, septic design, what the electric was going to cost, et cetera. The actual infrastructure, not the construction of the building itself, but the infrastructure to get that building up and running. And with electric, whether it's a 2,700 square foot building or a 3,800 square foot building or whatever it might be, that's $50,000 essentially. As you mentioned, Mayor DeBella, you've got septic. You have to have toilets. You have to have a septic system. That's almost $50,000. HVAC. And along with Mr. Schlegel, we attempted to see if we could cut some of the cost off the HVAC, but there are state regulations as far as that's concerned. That's $70,000. So you're at $170,000 before you have laid a brick into the ground. So for someone to suggest, with all that infrastructure that has to be put in, that a building could be put up on that site for $150,000 is ridiculous. Now, that being said, We went to the point of getting the approved plans, of finding out, of getting a septic design. I have a letter from September of 2004 from the town manager at that time that's saying that in terms of those approved plans, there was none of that, and that's what was required to move the process forward. So we kind of inherited the project in October of 2004, took the plans that we had to an architect, had him look at it. He rejected it and said it would never pass code, mostly because it was a wood structure. He didn't think that it would because that building sits there by itself and had tremendous winds go through that field. He recommended a block building. Beyond that, in terms of the size, et cetera, I think what Mr. Chernesky suggested at the meeting that I had with him and Mr. Schlegel to get that individual together with everybody and get those question answers is real important. But again, I think that'd be best addressed with the architect.
Good, okay.
Thank you.
The 230,000 was just a maximum figure that we came up with to present to you guys. Chances are with the volunteerism and everything else, as we stated before, I think when they were up here, that it's going to be much less than that and should be. And again, I think we have to just defer everything to the architects when they look at this and come up with the final price.
Terrific.
And we apologize for the way we're dressed. We're on the field all night. So
And I took a lot of flack for coming in right from the field one night. Good thing you're not mayor.
Yeah.
Want to trade seats?
But you see, that this is what some of the people are questioning. If it's not going to be 230,000, why are you asking for 230,000? Why is it all documented in the? But you know,
it's
this
a great
is
Councilman Walsh.
a question. Why is it all not documented appropriately in a process?
Well,
we did have it documented in a process for you when we came to the last meeting. If you remember, the gentleman who's in charge of handling the construction end of things gave you guys a complete packet.
We have it tonight.
Which was how many pages long? So you were never presented that, to best of my knowledge, prior to that.
That's correct.
Right.
And what you said is the 230 is the maximum. You're hoping to defray it.
That's what we came up with in there.
And our understanding of that, speaking with Mr. Chernesky, is it's best to put that aside to bond for, but you don't necessarily have to bond for that amount, but you kind of protect yourself by putting in the account that 5% that you need in order to bond for that. So that's why we did that at his advice.
Well, I will stand corrected, but I think we asked you to do your best in giving us the worst scenario.
That's what we did. That's absolutely what we did.
That's
right. And I don't know where the 4,400 square foot came from, because it's the footprint of the building is 49.4 by I believe 40, and that comes out to just under 3,900 square feet.
We'll straighten that out with the
architect. And again, I think the architect could explain better certainly than we can why and how that came about.
Good.
Okay.
We appreciate your patience and cooperation. All right, I'm going to close the public portion. We have a public participation meeting on June 20th, 7:30 in these chambers. June 27th at 6:30 is our regular meeting. Is there any other business to be acted upon this evening?
No, Mayor, I do want to just announce one thing, if I may.
Go right ahead.
And with a little embarrassment. Last time a resident raised the issue of us not posting the agenda in a timely manner, and we wrote a memo to you explaining that what had happened was that an individual was on vacation. Under the new website, what we're trying to do is train each department into posting their own stuff so that we really could take advantage of the website. And what I found out today was that in the clerk's office there was a technical glitch, and the agenda wasn't posted till this afternoon, as opposed to Friday, where we would have liked to have done that. So for all those looking for that information, I take responsibility for that, but know that it was a matter of we're trying to train each department to handle their own web stuff.
Okay, we appreciate it. Mr. Tabasco, you said you did have a comment?
Yeah, I have one order of business. Now, we had about 61 ordinances and resolutions tonight, but in the last couple hours, I can't recall if we actually talked about this resolution. There's new rules by COA for the third round. We all know about that. But one of the things that came out in our packet in the last couple weeks said that we have to have a resolution of commitment for the third round substantive certification done no later than July 14, just 1 month from now.
Yeah.
So did we do that tonight or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we acted on it.
Yes.
I just had one item, since we went on to one other one. We have a letter here from our foreclosure attorney dated May 15th, where after significant amount of work, what we've all been waiting for has come through. There are several lot and blocks that we have now assumed ownership of because of different defaults. And some of these, at least in my recollection, represent substantial pieces of property that are flat and dry and could potentially be used for recreational amenities for a lot of our organizations. The what was formerly known, I guess, as the Banano properties, of which there are several at least come to mind. When might we get some inventory about putting Howell Inc. into what that means for the community, and can we, in turn, sell some of these for revenue back to the town? What's our plan?
I think if we're going to, for those properties where we might have to enter into negotiations, we're planning on bringing that into closed session. And actually, probably next time we meet in closed session, we're going to highlight some of them. But I'd prefer not to get into it right now.
Okay, so we'll wait to hear from you. Yeah. All right, hearing no other business, motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mayor.
We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Have a safe trip home, everybody.